Good morning, everyone. Those of you who've gotten up by now have seen that it has snowed quite a bit. It looks like here in northern Wayne County we've had at least an inch, at least at my house anyway. It's still snowing pretty good. I'm just west of Pikeville right now. So we got a good light to moderate snow going. It looks like the roads are mostly wet. I have seen a couple of places where there's traditionally shade out under the trees where there is some snow on the roads. But again, for the most part, the actual roads are wet. So I'm just going to ride to Goldsboro this morning as I go to work, and I figure we'll see how the roads look along the way. I did post a little earlier they upgraded to a winter storm warning for areas up in Halifax County, and in those areas where they're not expecting as much as 3 to 4 inches of snow and locally higher amounts. And at least for the time being, I'm going to stick with what I had called for yesterday, which was 2 to 4 inches along Highway 264 and 64 from Wilson to Tarboro, Rocky Mount, and maybe even Greenville, where the band of snow will be the heaviest. Now, we went yesterday from a high in the 50s, and the sun had come out, which was a little bit unexpected, but it did happen, and it got kind of warm, and I know some folks got worried, but once the sun went down and it started raining and things started to cool down, we dropped pretty quickly overnight down to the 30s, and it's 32 degrees now, which is a little bit colder than expected while the snow was falling. It wasn't ever supposed to snow while it was below freezing, so we're actually running a little bit below what we're expected now, temperature-wise. And that's certainly going to help with the accumulations just a little bit. A little bit of slush on the road here. This is actually Pikeville-Princeton Road headed towards Pikeville now. There's a little bit of slush in some of the areas right in the middle where people don't normally drive at, where the tires will miss. It's definitely enough to say the roads could be treacherous. I mean, I wouldn't recommend driving the normal speed limits this morning. I mean, if nothing else, the roads are wet. And again, right in the middle, in between where the tire grooves are, there is a area of slush that's accumulated. And that should continue to be the case as long as it's still dark outside, and it's still snowing pretty moderately, so that should keep that trend up. And the more slush accumulates, the easier the new snow that falls on top will accumulate. Fixing to go over the Pikeville-Princeton Road Bridge over 795 here in just a second, going into Pikeville. That's where I really expect to see some problems at, is on the bridges. Again, it's now 31 degrees outside on the car thermometer, so it's still getting colder. And you know, bridges always freeze before the actual road surfaces do, thanks to the fact that they're surrounded by air on all sides and there's no ground underneath to keep them warm. So it's snowing even harder now, and we're going over this bridge. Yeah, there's definitely some accumulation on the bridge. It's very thin right now, maybe a little bit hard to see, but it's definitely there. So be careful on bridges for sure. I mentioned a while ago what I thought would happen around the 264, 64 areas up in Edgecombe, Nash, and Wilson County, the 2 to 4 inches that I had been saying would happen. I actually don't normally make a lot of forecasts, but I actually thought I'd try that this time, and that's what I said would happen yesterday, and I still think that's going to be the case. As far as Wayne County goes, we've already had an inch around Pikeville, and I could easily see us getting close to 2 inches before this is over today. The southern end of the county, where the transition didn't happen quite as fast, maybe get an inch, inch and a half in some of the higher locations, and further south you could get up to an inch in Duplin and Sampson, and down in Lenore as well. Greene County, I could see an inch or two taking place there, and Johnston County maybe a couple of inches. Now on Highway 117 in Pikeville headed south toward Goldsboro. Another thing that I am seeing this morning, there's a lot more ponding on the road than usual, and I guess that has something to do with the slush that's accumulated on the outside of the tire grooves and the road. That's helping to hold a lot of the water in the grooves. So just another reason to drive safely this morning, to take your time, even if it's not completely snow covered. There's still potential to hydroplane. In addition to the slush that's accumulated in the less traveled areas. It's definitely hard to see on the camera, but it's snowing pretty good. Just looking at the headlights. The flakes are not exactly huge, so it's making it a little bit harder for it to see. what I want to do for a moment is I'm going to stop this video. I'll start up another one here in a few minutes when I get into town. And we'll see how it looks in there. Just in the interest of not having such a long video, we'll stop it here because there's not a lot changing right through this area anyway. It's mostly wet roads with a little slush in the middle. It is still snowing, so I'll come back in a few minutes with a new video.